Many times when I work with homeowners who are considering selling their house, they're trying to figure out the right timing to do so. And I give them advice based on their situation. But as I thought about it, there are some very consistent questions to ask yourself and standards to know that I'm going to give you today, the three top things. My name's Pierre. I am a local realtor in 2 states, Pennsylvania and New Jersey. And on this channel, I want to share with you some free real estate advice, no matter where you live, that will help you in your journey. And today specifically, I want to share with you, how do you know when is the right time to sell your home? And this question of when really is answered by several other questions: the why question, the how question, and the what question. So I'm going to go through those 3 other questions today: why, how, and what, to help you get a better understanding of when. Because if you can answer these questions, the when will eventually arrive. First, the question is why. Why are you selling your home? And this comes down to motive. Why are you selling? And there are 2 primary motives, although there's plenty of others that could be there. The 2 primary motives for selling a home are the 2 M's: movement and money. Movement means there's something in your life that is causing you to move. You're not just selling your home, but you're selling your home to move to somewhere else. Maybe you're relocating, maybe you're downsizing, maybe you're going south for the winter or for the rest of your life. Maybe there's some type of life transition and you have to move, or you want to move. One of those 2 things are the motive, the why. The other reason is money. Sometimes people want the money from their house for other things, maybe to pay for college, pay off debt, some opportunity, or some business, and they need cash. Now, interestingly enough, if you want the money, but you don't want to sell your house, there are some other options that you might want to consider depending on how much you need and how much equity you already have in your home. For example, you might consider getting a home equity line of credit to be able to pull out money from your home for the purposes that you have in mind without having to sell your home and have to transition. So don't force the sale of your home if you don't really need to and you just need the money. Consider some other options. Now, I'm not a financial advisor. There may be other options depending on your means and what you have access to. But what I'm saying, when it comes to your house, you don't necessarily have to sell your house to get the money from your house. There are other ways to do so. Number 1 is your motive. Why are you moving? And if you define that, it'll help you better come into the place of knowing when. But the second one is the means. And what I mean by that is, how much are you willing to invest in your home before selling it? Now, this is not a make or break question, meaning there's only one right answer. This is just a clarifying question. So for example, are you willing to put more time into fixing up your home, things that have worn down or broken down? Are you putting the effort? Or the big question, do you have the money to make those improvements? Now, you might say, I'm ready to sell my home just as it is. I'm not doing one more thing. Or maybe it's not even your home. Maybe you inherited a home. Or maybe there's someone who's asking you, to be the executor, or have asked you to be the executor of a home. So if the question is how, then you have to wonder, how much am I willing to put into this home before selling it? Now, some clients of mine, they want to make major changes, and they'll consult me to ask questions like, which are the changes that would best improve the value of my home? That's another conversation for another time. I'm happy to address it, and I will. But the bigger question is, how much are you willing to invest? And there is an amount of time or money that you have. And there is an amount of time that you're willing to put in, or money, or a little bit of both. Maybe you're going to work some of this yourself and you're handy enough, or you're going to paint or do things that you know are in your capacity. Maybe you have no time to spend in this, but you do have some money. Maybe you don't have money, but you have time. Maybe it's a mix of both. But either way, you have to ask yourself the question, how willing am I to making changes, and how much money and time do I have to it? So that's the second one, the means, the how. Third is the market. And what I mean by the market is knowing what your home is worth. And that will help your readiness, because you will know what your proceeds will be when you sell the house based on how much debt you currently have on the house, and subtracting any commissions or fees or taxes that are involved in the sale. Now, this can't just come about by yourself. There's some ballparks and estimates you could do, but it's best to have this conversation with a local realtor who's an expert in your area to give you an idea. Now, I'm going to create other videos and have other videos on the value of your home. We'll check that out as a different conversation. But what I want you to understand is the what. You want to know, what is the equity in your home? What is the value of your home? What's the potential that you're going to receive from the sale of your home? Because it does matter how much money you receive on the back end for most of us, I would have to say. So my conclusion here of all of this is, in order to know the when, you first have to know your why. Define your why. Why am I doing this? Why am I moving? And make that clear to a trusted professional that you're working with. Here's why. See, when I talk to clients, I'll say to them, not sign here in the bottom line and, let's get this thing happening. I'll say, well, why are you moving? What's prompting this move? And if you speak with a realtor and they don't ask you those type of questions and they're just ready to sell your home, I'd be a little cautious. Yeah, I'd be a little cautious. There's a word, commission breath. You don't want to work with someone who has commission breath. They just need the sale. They're needy. You want to work with someone who's not needy, who's professional, who will know that they'll do well whether they sell your home or not. They're that confident. They're that established. They're good to go. So you have to work with someone who's going to ask those tougher questions, like, why are you selling? Because let's say you came to me, and this has happened to me many times, and someone says, I want to sell my home. And I say, why? And they say, I need money for X, Y, and Z. And I say, well, there's some other means to get that money without having to sell your home. And I'll even encourage someone to look at those other options because it might be better for them. And one thing you'll hear from me often if you work with me or just listen to my videos is that I take it really seriously, this one thing as a realtor. It's called my fiduciary responsibility, which means I have an obligation to do what's in the best interest of myself, of my clients. And so I always give the advice that would best help them, and it changes based on the person and their circumstances. So you got to know your motive. You got to know how much you're willing to put into it. And then you have to better understand, what is my house really worth? When you know those things, you can be better prepared to know the when to sell. Hey, I hope you appreciated this and that it added some value to you. I would appreciate if you subscribe to the channel so that you can get more free real estate content that will add value to your life. If you need a realtor in the PA, New Jersey area, feel free to reach out to me on my website, and I'll include that here. And I hope you got some value out of this and find your way forward as you look to potentially sell your home. Take care and God bless.